Traveling back in time to Mary Poppins, 1964, the film stands not only as a legendary cinematic masterpiece but also as a magical land where enchantment and music blend seamlessly, taking audiences on vibrant adventures with a cast of talented actors, faces beloved across generations. However, after the stage lights dim and the music fades, few know that behind Hollywood's dazzling glow, many of these actors faced their own challenging paths. These paths were not always bathed in glory. At times, they were battles against poor health, unexpected tragedies, and unforeseen losses. In this retrospective, we delve into the profound stories behind each face in Mary Poppins, lives that were far from easy yet endured with resilience, honoring the contributions they made to the world of cinema. Their stories stand as testaments to a world of art that is as harsh as it is human, a place where, even when the magic fades, courage and love for the craft remain an undying force. Glynis Johns, 1923–2024, celebrated for her role as the buoyant and suffragette-spirited Mrs. Banks in Mary Poppins, was an actress with a voice as distinctive as her effervescent charm. Behind the bright screen persona lay a series of turbulent romantic entanglements that brought heartbreak to her personal life. Johns married 4 times, with each union dissolving in disillusionment. Her third marriage to Cecil Henderson, a producer, ended acrimoniously, as did her fourth to writer Elliot Arnold, whose emotional distance left her feeling isolated and unfulfilled. Despite these struggles, Johns maintained a remarkable career, gracing stage and screen for decades. Her later years, however, were marked by solitude and frailty as she retreated from public life. Living well past her centenary, Johns passed away at the age of 100, her death attributed to natural causes. Her long life was a testament to resilience, though it bore the scars of unfulfilled personal happiness. David Tomlinson, 1917–2000, the charming English actor known for his role as the stern yet endearing Mr. Banks in Mary Poppins, 1964, embodied the quintessential image of a 20th-century British patriarch. Off-screen, however, his life bore the weight of profound tragedy and emotional turbulence. In 1943, during the height of World War II, Tomlinson married his first wife, Mary Gunning. Their love was tragically brief. Shortly after their wedding, Mary committed suicide, taking her 2 children from a previous marriage with her in a devastating act of despair. This heartbreak haunted Tomlinson, shaping his later years and leaving an indelible shadow on his personal life. Although he found love again with Audrey Freeman, whom he married in 1953 and remained with until his death, the early sorrow he endured tempered his comedic brilliance with a layer of sadness. Tomlinson's death in 2000 came quietly in his sleep, but it marked the end of a life colored by both professional success and private anguish. Hermione Baddeley, 1906–1986, who brought vivacity and humor to the role of Ellen, the Banks family's maid in Mary Poppins, 1964, was a woman of immense talent but one whose personal life often mirrored the chaos of her most spirited characters. A veteran of the British stage and screen, Baddeley was celebrated for her sharp wit and larger-than-life presence. However, her tumultuous relationships often made headlines, overshadowing her professional achievements. Her marriage to aristocrat David Tennant was marked by infidelity and ended in acrimony, leaving Baddeley to navigate single motherhood in an unforgiving industry. Despite her resilience, financial struggles and the strain of maintaining her career left her deeply lonely in her later years. In 1986, Baddeley succumbed to a series of strokes, her final days spent in relative obscurity, a far cry from the vibrant performances that had once lit up the screen. Her death was a poignant reminder of the fragility that often lies beneath a dazzling exterior. Reta Shaw, 1912–1982, who played the no-nonsense cook Mrs. Brill in Mary Poppins, carried her trademark stern demeanor into a career that spanned stage, television, and film. Beneath her commanding presence, however, lay a deeply private woman whose romantic endeavors were fraught with disappointment. Shaw, fiercely independent, never married but endured a series of unrequited loves and fleeting relationships that left her with a lingering sense of isolation. Her dedication to her craft was unwavering, yet it came at the cost of personal fulfillment. By the late 1970s, Shaw's health began to decline, and she retreated from public life, grappling with obesity and diabetes. She passed away in 1982 from complications related to emphysema, a condition exacerbated by years of smoking. Shaw's death marked the end of a life filled with professional triumphs but also a quiet struggle for connection and acceptance. Matthew Garber, 1956–1977, the young actor who played Michael Banks, the mischievous and imaginative son of the Banks family in Mary Poppins, 1964, became a symbol of childhood innocence on screen. Tragically, his real-life story was marked by an untimely and heartbreaking end. Garber's career in film was brief, with just 3 movies to his name before he stepped away from acting entirely, focusing on his studies and a quieter life away from Hollywood. His retreat from the limelight meant little was known about his personal struggles, but in 1976, while traveling in India, he contracted hepatitis, a condition that went untreated for too long. The disease tragically advanced into hemorrhagic pancreatitis, and he passed away the following year at just 21 years old. His untimely death left an enduring sadness, as his potential remained forever unfulfilled, and his brief but luminous career became a poignant reminder of the fragility of life. Elsa Lanchester, 1902–1986, who portrayed the stern and exasperated Katie Nana in Mary Poppins, was a celebrated character actress with a career spanning decades. Best known for her iconic role in Bride of Frankenstein, 1935, Lanchester's off-screen life was far more complex and fraught than her commanding screen presence suggested. Married to actor Charles Laughton, their union was one of professional collaboration but personal alienation, as Laughton was widely believed to be homosexual. The lack of a traditional romantic bond left Lanchester isolated, and the couple often lived parallel lives. Financial pressures in her later years forced Lanchester to accept roles beneath her talent, a reality that embittered her. Her health deteriorated in the 1980s, and she succumbed to pneumonia following a series of strokes in 1986. Her death marked the end of an extraordinary life, one filled with artistic achievement yet shadowed by loneliness and unfulfilled desires. Arthur Treacher, born on July 23, 1894, embodied the dignified and dutiful constable in Mary Poppins, 1964. Known for his towering frame and impeccable English demeanor, Treacher was a quintessential character actor, often cast as the archetypal British butler in Hollywood productions. His career spanned decades, yet beneath the polished veneer of his performances lay a man often shadowed by professional frustration. As the golden age of Hollywood waned, Treacher's star faded, leaving him relegated to smaller roles and eventually a brief stint as the face of a fast food chain bearing his name. His personal life, while outwardly placid, concealed a series of unfulfilled romances. He remained a lifelong bachelor, perhaps haunted by a lost love from his early years in England. Treacher passed away on December 14, 1975, in a nursing home in Manhasset, New York. His death, attributed to cardiovascular disease, marked the quiet conclusion of a life spent largely in service to the entertainment of others, yet often at the cost of his own happiness. Reginald Owen, born on August 5, 1887, brought the eccentric and bombastic Admiral Boom to life in Mary Poppins with a vigor that belied his advanced years. A stalwart of British stage and screen, Owen transitioned seamlessly into Hollywood, where he became renowned for portraying a spectrum of aristocratic and authoritative figures. Despite his professional successes, his personal life was marred by tumult. A series of short-lived marriages plagued Owen, each ending in heartbreak or acrimony, leaving him a solitary figure in his later years. His third wife, the love of his life, succumbed to a sudden illness, an event from which Owen never fully recovered. He died on November 5, 1972, in Boise, Idaho, after suffering from a severe respiratory illness. The serene mountains where he spent his final years contrasted starkly with the turmoil of his earlier life, as if the actor sought refuge from the emotional storms that had long defined his existence. Ed Wynn, born on November 9, 1886, lent his whimsical charm to the role of Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins, 1964, delighting audiences with his infectious laughter and gravity-defying antics. Known as the perfect fool during his vaudeville days, Wynn transitioned into film and television, where he became a beloved character actor. However, behind the mirthful persona was a man haunted by self-doubt and personal tragedy. His first marriage ended in a bitter divorce, and his second was marked by estrangement, leaving Wynn isolated in his later years. Despite his comedic genius, Wynn struggled with feelings of inadequacy, fearing he had not achieved the respect he deserved as a dramatic actor. He passed away on June 19, 1966, from throat cancer, just 2 years after his memorable performance in Mary Poppins. Wynn's final days were spent in quiet reflection, his once boisterous spirit silenced by the weight of illness and unfulfilled aspirations. Jane Darwell, born on October 15, 1879, portrayed the tender and symbolic bird woman in Mary Poppins, a role that became a poignant swan song for her illustrious career. Best remembered for her Academy Award-winning turn as Ma Jode in The Grapes of Wrath, 1940, Darwell's career spanned over 5 decades. Yet her personal life was far less stable than her professional one. A lifelong single woman, she endured numerous heartbreaks and fleeting romances, many of which ended in disappointment due to her partner's disinterest in marriage. In her later years, Darwell suffered from ill health and financial difficulties, forcing her to retreat from Hollywood to live in a motion picture country home. She died there on August 13, 1967, from a heart attack, her once commanding presence dimmed by years of declining health. Darwell's final appearance in Mary Poppins remains a bittersweet testament to her enduring warmth and grace, even as her own life grew increasingly solitary. Arthur Malet, born on September 24, 1927, brought a quiet dignity to the role of Mr. Daws, Jr., in Mary Poppins, 1964, portraying the son of the eccentric bank chairman with a reserved yet notable charm. Malet's acting career was defined by supporting roles in film and television, often cast as mild-mannered or quirky characters. Despite his professional success, Malet led a reclusive and melancholic personal life. A romantic relationship during his early years in England ended abruptly, and he never fully recovered from the heartbreak, choosing instead to remain unmarried. As time passed, he retreated from the public eye, spending his later years in a modest home in Southern California. He passed away on May 18, 2013, from natural causes. Though his death was quiet and unremarked by many, it marked the end of a life steeped in quiet loneliness and artistic devotion, his performances forever etched in the memories of those who cherished his work. Frank Baker, born on October 11, 1892, played a gentleman in the bank in Mary Poppins, 1964, an uncredited role that reflected his later years as a background player in Hollywood. Once a promising actor and stuntman in silent films, Baker's career waned as talkies became dominant, and his rugged charm gave way to aging anonymity. His personal life was fraught with turmoil. 2 failed marriages left him financially strained and emotionally adrift. Baker found solace in his love for horses and often worked on film sets as an animal wrangler to make ends meet. He died on December 30, 1980, in Woodland Hills, California, after a prolonged battle with cancer. The quiet struggles of his life, eclipsed by the glimmer of Hollywood's golden age, left a poignant legacy of resilience in the face of obscurity, his fleeting presence in Mary Poppins a subtle reminder of his enduring connection to the silver screen. Robert Banas, born on January 23, 1933, danced his way into the hearts of Mary Poppins viewers with his fleeting appearance as one of the energetic and carefree chimney sweeps. Though uncredited, his presence on screen radiated joy, particularly in the iconic supercalifragilisticexpialidocious sequence. Banas' career was built on his skills as a dancer and choreographer, and he was often cast in supporting roles or as part of the ensemble, particularly in films and TV shows requiring a light-hearted, athletic touch. Behind the scenes, however, his life was filled with struggle. He faced multiple personal setbacks, including a failed marriage that deeply affected him. The loneliness of his later years became evident, as he remained largely away from the public eye. Robert Banas died on May 23, 2024, following a battle with cancer, a disease that quietly overtook him after years of his steady but unheralded contribution to film and dance. His passing, like his life, was understated, yet it left an indelible mark on those who remembered his bright, fleeting moments on screen. Don Barclay, born on January 22, 1892, portrayed Mr. Binnacle, the Admiral's loyal servant, in Mary Poppins, 1964, an uncredited yet memorable role. A skilled character actor, Barclay spent decades in Hollywood, often typecast in small but significant parts, playing everything from soldiers to sailors. His life, however, was far less scripted than the roles he played. His romantic relationships were marked by disappointment and heartbreak. Twice divorced, he was left with a sense of unfulfilled longing that seemed to shadow him throughout his career. Though his professional life was busy, it never afforded him the recognition he so desired. He passed away on March 27, 1975, from complications related to a stroke, a condition that had quietly deteriorated his health in the final years of his life. His death, somewhat obscured by time, reflected the nature of his career, always present in the background, but never truly in the spotlight. Marjorie Bennett, born on February 15, 1896, played the uncredited role of Miss Lark, the old woman in the park, in Mary Poppins, 1964, a role that quietly captured her knack for portraying characters with a touch of humor and grace. Bennett's acting career spanned several decades, with notable appearances in television and film. Her career, however, was often defined by smaller parts, where she occasionally got to showcase her comedic talents, though she was rarely the star. In her personal life, Bennett's romantic relationships were overshadowed by loss. She was married briefly, but her husband tragically passed away during World War II, a blow that haunted her for years. She never remarried and kept much of her personal life private, though those who knew her spoke of her quiet sorrow. Bennett passed away on April 14, 1982, in Los Angeles, California, at the age of 86, after a period of declining health. Her death, as understated as her presence in films, was a poignant end to a long life spent in the shadows of Hollywood's brightest stars. Daws Butler, born on November 16, 1916, was the voice behind several beloved characters in animation, including those in Mary Poppins, 1964. His uncredited work as the turtle and penguin in the film was just a small part of a much larger career that spanned decades in voice acting. Though his contributions to pop culture were immense, the man behind the iconic voices, such as Yogi Bear and Elroy Jetson, led a life marked by personal struggles and romantic disappointments. Butler's early career soared, but behind the scenes, his personal life was turbulent. He experienced the pressures of an industry that often demanded perfection, leaving little room for genuine happiness in his relationships. Tragically, Daws Butler passed away on May 18, 1988, from cancer, a painful illness that took him far too soon at the age of 71. Despite his successful career, Butler's death marked the end of an era for voice acting, leaving behind a legacy but an emotional void in the hearts of those who knew him. Colin Campbell, born on April 18, 1883, appeared in Mary Poppins, 1964, as the bank vault employee. His role, though minor, was part of a career that reflected the challenges of many actors of his time who struggled to gain recognition. The 1960s were not kind to Campbell, as he found himself relegated to bit parts in films like Mary Poppins, a far cry from the leading roles he once dreamed of. His life, much like his career, was marred by the personal turmoil of romantic relationships that never seemed to satisfy him. Campbell was said to have endured tumultuous and unsatisfying marriages, plagued by misunderstandings and personal anguish. He passed away on October 22, 1966, at the age of 65, his death a somber reminder of how the passage of time, combined with the fleeting nature of his Hollywood fame, had led him to a quiet end, his struggles largely overlooked by the world. Despite the years that have passed, his brief contribution to Mary Poppins remains a poignant testament to the many small roles in cinema that are often overshadowed by the more celebrated ones. Cyril Delevanti, born in 1889, appeared in Mary Poppins, 1964, as Mr. Grubbs, an uncredited role, yet his career spanned several decades, and his life bore the weight of personal tragedies that shaped his later years. A skilled character actor, Delevanti found work primarily in bit parts, often portraying ordinary or unremarkable figures, yet his deep voice and steady presence made him a recognizable face in British films. Behind the camera, however, Delevanti struggled with a turbulent personal life. His marriage, which seemed to promise companionship and stability, was marked by unhappiness and emotional distance. Tragically, his later years were clouded by a slow and painful decline. In his final days, the actor was found to be suffering from both financial difficulties and failing health. Delevanti passed away in 1975 at the age of 86, leaving behind a career filled with quiet contributions to cinema, but a life too often overshadowed by personal strife and loneliness. George DeNormand, born in 1903, appeared as a pedestrian in Mary Poppins, 1964, one of many uncredited roles he took throughout his career as a versatile extra and background player in Hollywood. DeNormand's presence in films was fleeting, but his contributions as a supporting actor in dozens of films, from westerns to comedies, left an indelible mark on the fabric of 20th-century cinema. Despite the many roles he played, his own life was often at odds with the glitz and glamour of Tinseltown. His romantic life was especially complicated, filled with brief, troubled relationships that often ended in heartbreak. In the 1950s, DeNormand's tumultuous marriage ended bitterly, and he was left emotionally shattered. His struggles with depression and the disillusionment of his failed relationships compounded his growing sense of despair. His death, in 1976 at the age of, was a somber end to a quiet career. He passed away without much fanfare, largely forgotten by the public, his contributions largely overshadowed by his own personal darkness. Marjorie Eaton, born in 1901, portrayed Miss Persimmon, the old woman in the park, in Mary Poppins, 1964, in an uncredited role, yet her life, filled with quiet tragedy, remains a story worth telling. An accomplished actress with a career that spanned decades, Eaton's later years were marked by a certain sadness that would plague her after many years of professional success. Married twice, her first marriage was filled with strife, as her husband's emotional distance and eventual abandonment left her heartbroken. Though she found a second partner, their relationship never blossomed into the idealized love she had once dreamed of, and she would spend much of her life alone, though her strong presence in both films and television gave her some solace. As her career began to slow, Eaton faced financial difficulties and growing health problems, often isolated from those she had once worked with. She passed away in 1986 at the age of 85, her death a quiet one that seemed to reflect the unspoken nature of her roles throughout the years, always in the background, rarely celebrated. Though her work is still remembered, the actress' life remains a testament to the sacrifices of many in the industry, who found fame, but not the happiness they had sought. Peter Ellenshaw, born in 1913, gave his voice to the penguin waiter in Mary Poppins, 1964, a role that, while uncredited, added a touch of whimsical character to the film. As a renowned visual effects artist, Ellenshaw's contributions to film were far-reaching, with his artistry shaping the look of many classic films, including Mary Poppins. However, the man behind the artistry was not immune to the suffering and heartache that so often accompany those in creative fields. His first marriage ended in a painful divorce, leaving Ellenshaw emotionally scarred and questioning his place in the world. Though he later remarried, that relationship too was filled with struggles, and it became clear that Ellenshaw never quite found the peace he longed for in his personal life. His career, while successful, took a toll on his emotional well-being, and his later years were clouded by both the pressures of his profession and personal turmoil. After his death in 2007 at the age of 94, many reflected on his brilliant legacy, but few could see the complex, often painful life that lay behind the man. He passed away in relative obscurity, his death the quiet conclusion to a life of creative brilliance shadowed by personal loss. Harvey Evans, born in 1941, was a dancer and actor who contributed his talents to Mary Poppins, 1964, in the uncredited role of a chimney sweep dancer. Though a relatively minor part in this iconic film, Evans' dedication to the craft of dance earned him recognition in the entertainment world, particularly for his work in Broadway productions and Hollywood musicals. However, behind his professional accomplishments, Evans' life was far from the glamorous picture many might assume. His romantic relationships were fraught with instability, marked by difficult breakups and unfulfilled connections. Though he had fleeting moments of happiness, his personal life remained turbulent, with a series of short-lived marriages and unsteady relationships. As his career began to cool in the 1970s, Evans faced financial difficulties and struggled with depression. His later years were plagued by a sense of purposelessness, as he grappled with the fading of his once celebrated talent and the loneliness that seemed to define his life. Harvey Evans passed away in 2021 at the age of 87, his death largely unnoticed by the public, reflecting the quiet, uncelebrated nature of his final years. His passing marked the end of a life that had once sparkled with potential, but was overshadowed by personal and emotional struggles that few ever saw. Paul Frees, born in 1920, gave his voice to the barnyard horse in Mary Poppins, 1964, a minor yet memorable contribution to the film's colorful array of characters. Freese was a prolific voice actor, lending his talents to a wide range of films, television shows, and advertisements, yet his personal life was filled with turmoil and conflict. While his career flourished in Hollywood, voicing iconic characters like the ghost host in The Haunted Mansion and multiple characters in The Simpsons, Freese was tormented by inner demons that slowly ate away at his happiness. His romantic relationships were tumultuous, with his marriage to actress Virginia Hilliard marked by infidelities and emotional strain. These issues, combined with the stress of working in the fast-paced and ever-demanding world of voice acting, contributed to his isolation. Freese struggled with bouts of depression, which became more pronounced in his later years. He passed away in 1986 at the age of 66, succumbing to heart failure. His death was quiet, and much of the public was unaware of the emotional toll that his personal life had taken. Though his voice lives on in the numerous characters he brought to life, his personal story remains one of unspoken pain, a brilliant artist whose personal life was a far cry from the colorful characters he so expertly portrayed. What are your thoughts on the untimely and often tragic deaths of the actors from Mary Poppins? Which one of them holds the most special place in your memory, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your stories and reflections. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos, where we continue to explore the lives, legacies, and untold stories of iconic stars from cinema's golden era. Your voice keeps these memories alive.